Get started. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our fifth installment of the Multifamily Product Group Specialty Call. My name is Rich Enderlin, coming to you from beautiful Pasadena, California. I'm alongside my partner in crime and co-chair of this group, Mr. Tom Papoulias. Tommy, good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We look forward to a really good presentation today. And yes, it's a beautiful day out here.
And also, of course, we have on stage with us, coming from the Sacramento area, our special guest speaker, Brett Swarts. Brett, good morning. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day.
Rich, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Tom, as well.
You bet. We'll get back to you, Brett, just a few minutes. I just want to make a few opening remarks before we turn things over to Brett for a great presentation on the Deferred Sales Trust. The purpose of this call, I just want to keep reminding everybody of this, is the purpose of these product specialty group calls is so that if you are in the multifamily space, which I trust most, if not all of you are in, that you have a forum once a month to go into, and we typically have a guest speaker, and then we'll have deal presentations, listings, and then off-market opportunities, and then wants and needs. And that's kind of the format that we originally started out from. But as we all now know, EXP, of course, just released a press release that as of the end of June, we now have 300 commercial agents, which, considering Jim has only been at this for 6 or 7 months, is pretty phenomenal. Just to give you a reference point, when we were at Sperry, it took us 5 years to get to 225. So we're certainly moving at a rapid pace, but at the same token, we just don't have enough practitioners overall, much less multifamily folks, and we therefore just don't have any inventory. And not surprising, especially given that this year-long pandemic has really put a hamper on listings. So we certainly hope that opens up. Again, eventually we want to get back to more deal flow, deal sharing. I can tell you from my past history, and I'm sure Tom Papoulias can concur, that making the commitment to this call once a month can certainly produce an opportunity for you, at least one a year. And I can say that from personal experience that that's what's happened. We hope to get back to that. So what we've done is we've transitioned more to an educational call. So I want you folks to come on in here and spend an hour with us and hopefully walk away being educated on and having a tool in your tool chest to go out and get business. The last 2 calls, we spent time on the original DST, or the first DST, the Delaware Statutory Trust. We had Tommy Thompson in talking about that. If there's one takeaway you want from that call, is that the Delaware Statutory Trust is a great third option for your 1031 exchange. It's one of the biggest objections you will get when you're prospecting for listings from your multifamily clients is, yeah, I want to sell my property, but what am I going to exchange into? And the DST certainly answers that question and can give them an amount of certainty that they will have a third option. So that was the takeaway, I think, from the DST from last month, and hopefully all of you took away that. But again, the real thing is not to be an expert in the Delaware Statutory Trust, but to now have a working knowledge of it. And when you do get a client who is interested in selling their property and wanting to do an exchange, certainly bringing Tommy Thompson into the deal at that point would be highly recommended. And he can certainly help you close on getting that listing. So we're going to transition, and I did this on purpose because the acronym DST is something hopefully you guys will all be familiar with. And so today we have the other DST, that is the Deferred Sales Trust. And yet it is another tool that is very powerful in helping you, given the definite the tax issues that we all face here. And if you're not familiar with it, on May 29th, the Biden administration did announce their tax proposal. And in that tax proposal is some pretty devastating proposals for the commercial real estate world. Namely, the 1031 exchange north of $500,000 has been eliminated. That's going to cut probably about 90% of 1031 exchanges if in fact it were to get passed as proposed. And that remains to be seen as to whether or not that's going to happen. But I think it's important that if you're not familiar with the proposal, that you get familiar with it and discuss it with your clients, because it will impact them. If they're not aware of it, they could get hit between the eyes when in fact this does get passed in whatever form it ends up being in. So this is the whole purpose of this, and also how can we help our clients fend off these enormous tax hits, including stepped up bases on the chopping block as well. Well, the Deferred Sales Trust is certainly another tool in your quiver. And it is very, very different from the Delaware Statutory Trust, and Brett's going to get into all of that. But one of the things about the Deferred Sales Trust is it actually can eliminate the whole 1031 process in its entirety. So you have another alternative to tell your clients, if they're not comfortable doing a 1031, that they can look into the Deferred Sales Trust. Now, the Deferred Sales Trust has been around for about 22 years, but mostly it's been primarily used for on the actual single family side, residential side of things, for people who have seen their equity in their personal homes increase above the $250,000 single exemption and $500,000 married exemption that the IRS gives you in the 2 and 5 year. And so the deferred sales trust is a great way, if you are north of those numbers and want to avoid paying capital gains on your primary residence, is to use a deferred sales trust. I'm one of those lucky people that bought my home in Pasadena 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago. So it's appreciated tremendously. And I'm just glad to know that if and when I do sell, that I'm familiar with the deferred sales trust. And Brett will, of course, be my first call as to how to allocate these monies these proceeds when I do sell the house, so that I don't have to pay all that capital gains tax. But with Brett Swarts, what Brett's been able to do is give himself as such an expert on the deferred sales trust that he has now recognized that this is a very viable tool for the commercial world. And it's not as well known. Certainly the 1031's been around for more than a century now. But the deferred sales trust, like I said, has only been around about 22 years, and a lot of people just don't know what it is. But it is absolutely a great tool to help you and to help your clients defer, or actually in some cases just remove any capital gains consequences. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to our guest speaker, Mr. Brett Swarts. Brett, take it away, my friend.
Rich, thanks so much for the opportunity, and I'm so excited to be here again with EXP and especially with EXP commercial presentation here. So we're going to dive right in, and it's going to go fast, but we will take questions as well at the end, and feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go along, and know that I'm here to answer all questions as well on the EXP workplace as well. So this is the #1 secret to overcoming the biggest objection to a deferred sales trust. How it helps Steve, and this is Steve on the left here. He's smiling. I like to say he's happy because we were able to save his failed 1031 exchange, right? When I actually listed and sold his $1.7 million multifamily building and helped him defer $350,000, again, while saving his 1031 exchange. Now, realize I would not have obtained this listing if I didn't solve the problem of the option for the deferred sales trust. In other words, if I didn't solve the major objection that most commercial real estate brokers get every single day, which is this: hey, I'd love to sell my property, but I don't have my 1031 exchange lined up. Or I'd love to sell my property, but I have this huge capital gains tax, and I don't want to be caught in that 45-day window to have to close. And so I was able to not only list this building and sell it and get a commission, but as well help him save his failed 1031 exchange and get him to help him solve some problems that he was having. Okay, so. Yep, so I'm Brett Swarts. I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. I'm also with EXP, soon to be transitioning to EXP Residential. Joined about a year ago, but soon to be transitioning to commercial, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And I am a multifamily practitioner by trade, and we'll talk about that here more in a minute. But I am focused at this point as being the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions and equipping commercial real estate brokers, luxury realtors, business brokers, and financial advisors with this deferred sales trust tool. As a legal disclaimer, though, this message is for educational purposes and it's solely intended to provide an overview of how the deferred sales trust works and can be implemented. But Capital Gains Tax Solutions does not provide legal tax or professional service or advice. Each transaction and individual circumstances vary widely, and we encourage participants and strongly urge you guys to seek independent legal tax and professional advice for yourself and for your clients. But let's start with the big picture, okay? And this is according to the American Bankers Association, and these facts are pretty staggering if you think about it. There's they did a study, and they found that about 17 to 20 trillion will pass from one generation to the next in the next 18 to 20 years, and this is known as the baby boomers. This study found that there's about 77 million baby boomers in the U.S. alone. About every single day, about 10,000 of them are turning 65 and are retiring. Okay, you couple that with the other part of the study, which found about 50% of the total net worth of America is tied into high-end primary homes and investment real estate and private equity or businesses. Then you add on that the 1031 exchange might be taken away completely or very limited by the Biden proposal. But on top of that, these very, very tight timeframes to find deals make it a very challenging way to trade assets and keep them tax deferred. As a reminder, a 1031 exchange only works for investment property. It does not work for a business, nor does it work for a primary home. However, it also does not work for public or private stock or cryptocurrency. Okay, whereas a deferred sales trust, you're going to learn, works for any type of highly appreciated asset, including cryptocurrency, public, private stock, primary residences, and business sales, and can save a failed 1031 exchange for investment property. So, what is the big challenge that your clients are facing? And how many of us know that we are in the business of solving problems? We're not in the business of selling real estate, nor am I in the business of selling DSTs or the Deferred Sales Trust. But I'm actually in the business of solving my clients' problems. And when I can solve their problems, guess what? The listings follow. So your clients are reluctant to list and sell with you because of the capital gains tax. That's their number one, if not number two problem that they are facing when they go to sell. And this is on the financial reasons for not to sell. And what is that amount? Well, it's somewhere between 30 and 50% of their gain if you consider depreciation recapture, and of course the state in which they live. But you have federal about 20%. You have, let's say, state of California as an example, 13.3. Then you add the Medicare tax of 3.8, and then you add depreciation recapture. You can even be above 50%. And if Biden's proposal does go through, guess what? We'll just tack another 20% on that. Instead of 30 to 50, it'll be 50 to 70%. And so every single day, high net worth, primary home, business, stock, and investment real estate owners, they pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in capital gains tax when they don't have to, or they just do not list and sell the property with you because you haven't solved that problem for them, right? So they feel trapped. So a few things before we get too much into this presentation. I want to let you know that it's okay to dream of helping your clients defer millions in tax and becoming the number one professional in your marketplace, your area of expertise, of breaking into the commercial real estate world if you're in the residential world, of breaking into the top professionals who are listing and selling deals because you are solving one of the number one problems for these clients that most people A, don't know about, or B, haven't actually executed. But being that I'm with EXP, I want to give you all of my secrets as much as I can and help you be confident in this structure and this strategy, okay? And on the kind of a macro scale, it's more important than ever to unlock new deals, new value, and be in the business of, again, solving your clients' problems. Rich in the beginning talked about the challenge with finding listings for EXP Commercial. I want to let you know that I have 2 listings right now, 2 multifamily listings, one for $2.6 million approximately, another one for about $2 million, both apartment complexes, both commercial properties. Both sellers would not have listed and sold the property, or in the process of selling the property, if it wasn't for the Deferred Sales Trust. So much so that they did not want to do a 1031 exchange. And you know that common call from most brokers is, hey, let me try to find you a 1031, or let's go into a Delaware. They said, we don't want that. We've done that for a long time, and we'll talk about the challenges with that here in a minute. Brett, we will list and sell the property with you today because of the Deferred Sales Trust. It is the Netflix to the old Blockbuster way of doing things. And so, but let's clarify who this is for, okay? If your client has a highly appreciated business, investment real estate, has a failing 1031 exchange, primary home, luxury home, public stock, including EXP stock, private stock, cryptocurrency. Okay, we're doing a cryptocurrency deal right now. They bought it at $100,000. It's Ethereum, right? It's like a Bitcoin, okay? And they're selling it for about $12 million, okay? Well, they don't have a 1031 option, but they do have a deferred sales trust option, and they're going to sell it. And guess what they're going to do after they defer about $5 or so million of capital gains tax? They're going to use those funds, all tax deferred, to go buy apartment complexes and a rental in Tahoe. They're in the East Bay area. That being said, it's very important to understand that the asset must be subject to capital gains tax, like a gain of at least $1 million net of all closing costs, and at least have $1 million net proceeds. Okay, so it's got to be $1 million and $1 million. Okay, so it's got to have a gain. So let's say they bought it at $1 and they're selling it for $1 million, right? That's about $1 million gain. That works. And the closing costs, net of commissions, net of debt on the property, it needs to be at least $1 million. So $1 million is our minimum. However, if they have 2 assets that they can combine that can sell quickly together, then they also qualify. Okay, so what is a deferred sales trust? First of all, it's not a Delaware Statutory Trust, like Rich said. This is the other DST. We believe that the old way of doing things, and this is the old 1031 exchange, is like Blockbuster. And we want to propose to you that there's a thing called Netflix using the Deferred Sales Trust. And why would you need one? Well, more than ever, clients need flexibility. They need liquidity. They want diversification. They want the option to be active or passive in real estate. They want to be able to reset a new depreciation schedule. But Rich, are you ready to participate? Or even Tom, which one wants to jump up here?
We're both right here, Brett. We're ready to.
All right.
Go ahead.
Let's start with Tom. So Tom, do you remember going to Blockbuster maybe about 10 years ago? And you had that movie, it's a Friday night, and you're excited to get that movie, and it's behind that cardboard box, and you can see it from across a couple aisles, and you're on a mission, right? Because your spouse has told you to get that movie that just was released, and you're excited to get it. Do you remember those times, Tom? Can you picture yourself in that Blockbuster store?
Absolutely. There was only one left.
There's only one left, right? And you're on a mission. You're a competitive guy. You're a commercial broker. You're there for one thing. You're not there to get the popcorn. You're not there to get the candy. You're just focused on getting that movie and getting out of there as quick as you can. But you had to drive there. You had to park. You're in Los Angeles. You're fighting traffic. You're doing all these hoops. But just before you grab that movie, Tom, there's that other person, right, who smiles at you, who happens to be 3 steps ahead of you, and looks at you as they're picking the movie out of that behind that cardboard box, and now the cardboard box goes all the way to the wall, and your heart sinks and he smiles, and you kind of smile because you're like, but you're upset, right? You're like, why can't they have more movies, right? Why do I have to get burned on this again? So you settle for your second movie, Tom, right? But gosh darn it, you forget to return it within 3 days, right? And then you get that penalty, and you're upset because you didn't rewind it and you get that penalty. But have you ever been in that situation, Tom?
Absolutely.
Well, I want to propose to you that's like the 1031 exchange, right? We have 45 days to identify, 180 days to close, and oftentimes clients and us feel trapped, and we don't know why there's not a better day. Like, why isn't it 180 days? Why is it 45? Why isn't it at least 65? Why do we have to follow all of these little rules like the Blockbuster way of doing things? Why do I have to have my old depreciation schedule travel, right? One of the number one reasons to owning real estate is for the depreciation to offset the cash flow. Well, guess what? When they have no depreciation after 27 and a half years for multifamily and 39 years for commercial, all of the cash flow coming in is getting taxed, right? And that's not great. That's like Blockbuster, right? Well, there's a new way. It's a better way. It's called a Deferred Sales Trust. There's no more timing restrictions. There's no more 45-day window. There's no more sell high, buy higher in 180 days. We call it the shotgun wedding. Rich, do you know anyone who got married really quick early on? They barely knew each other, and it didn't really work out?
Not, yes, I do.
So do I, right? And that's what we call the old Blockbuster 1031 exchange Delaware way of doing things. It's the shotgun wedding. We got to identify something in 45 days. We got to buy it within 180. By the way, I know I'm bashing the 1031 a little bit here, but I want to make a point, and I'm going to get into my story in a minute. There's a tool for every single client. And there's times when I'm doing 1031 exchanges, I'm doing Delaware Statutory Trust, which I have closed, as well as Deferred Sales Trust. But I really want to create this polar opposite because I can't stress enough how different these things are and how flexible the Deferred Sales Trust is. So here's my goal of this presentation. Why the Deferred Sales Trust is the number one growth strategy you need to be focusing on in 2021. How to grow your business with the DST, the Deferred Sales Trust, even if you don't have any capital gains tax knowledge or a ton of time, and how to use the Deferred Sales Trust today to drastically increase your sales and conversions immediately. More listings, more deals right now, okay? So as a quick background, I started out in my career learning from some of the best in the business at a firm called Marcus & Millichap in Northern California. Before that, I grew up in the real estate business with my father, building houses, mostly in the Bay Area, and in the rental business with my mom as well, owning rentals. So I've been in real estate all my life. So I am a cash flow 1031, absolutely love commercial real estate to the core, okay? I've also closed, it's now over $300 million in Deferred Sales Trust, multifamily retail office land, and investing in commercial real estate syndications valued over $200 million. So I am an investor myself. I love love investment real estate, okay? Again, I've also closed countless 1031 exchanges, Delaware Statutory Trust, and Deferred Sales Trust. I've held my Series 22 and 63 licenses. And what I really want to emphasize here is whenever you're getting knowledge or information from somebody, you want to make sure they are an expert and they've actually done the deals, or they've actually had their clients do the deals. They're not looking at it from an outside perspective of not having done the deals. And so having done Delaware Statutory Trust, 1031 exchanges, and the Deferred Sales Trust, I consider myself an expert in all three of these strategies. And I want to give you some of the pros and cons, obviously, on the Deferred Sales Trust. I've been featured in a bunch of media, by the way, which is pretty cool. You can go to my podcast, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and my YouTube channel for more content. One of my favorite guests that I've ever had on my show, and I had the chance to be on his show, and he's also going to be in my upcoming book that's going to be released in the next 3 months or so, is a guy named Kevin Harrington. And so if you don't know Kevin Harrington, there's a show called Shark Tank, and he sits next to Mark Cuban, or the other side of Mark Cuban, for the first 6 seasons. He's amazing. You can hear my interview with him and him learning about the Deferred Sales Trust for public stock, which is pretty cool. But by the way, guys, it wasn't always that way. This is me in 2006 at Marcus & Millichap. I mean, this is me in the background. I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio making cold calls and just closing deals. I'm actually one of the guys in the background scratching my head. You see, growing up in my world with my family was divorced at a young age, and my parents had a lot of wealth, and the divorce kind of crushed that in a lot of ways. But my dad still had the wealth, didn't pay a lot of child support to my mom, and so I grew up 90% of the time with my mom, and by summers I'd build houses with my dad. And so I saw both sides of wealth, and I knew at a young age that I never wanted wealth to come in between myself and my family. I wanted to have a lot of margin. And so I had a really fortunate cousin who was a mentor of mine who encouraged me to get into commercial real estate to create a lot of wealth. And it was a natural fit because I played college basketball. I played sports. I was very competitive all my life. And so, but it wasn't easy. I mean, it was sink or swim, guys. It was 100% commission, right? No benefits. It was the Navy SEALs. I saw 20, 30, 40, 50 guys come and go at Marcus & Millichap, and they just couldn't afford it. They couldn't make it, right? And I was working very hard, very committed, loved the business, had great mentors, and I started to get some momentum going. We started to really learn, and guess what? 2008 crash hit. I went from making a little bit of money to next to nothing overnight. And I don't know, Tom or Rich or anyone else listening to this presentation, if you've ever been so scared you weren't sure how you're going to provide for your family. You say, well, that's where I was. I went from within 2 years of being single, playing college basketball, not a worry in the world, excited about my future, succeeding in everything I've ever done, to overnight or within 2 years, married, baby on the way, and scared because I'm failing. And I was just so frustrated. I remember walking to my mentor's office. It's a random Thursday. It's raining outside. Another 1031 deal just fell apart. Okay. A chance at a $40,000 commission fell apart. It would have changed my world at that point because I'm making next to zero at that point. And it just falls apart. And remember all the pressure and all the stress just coming up. And I'm starting to just sob and cry. And I don't cry. I'm not a guy who cries, but I'm crying. And I'm giving everything I possibly have. Right. And I'm failing. And all of a sudden, all of the fears come back from my parents' marriage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this could cause challenges for my marriage. I've vowed to never have to get divorced, never have to have family challenges. But this is where I was. So I'm feeling just crushed, and I don't know what to do. And all I can think of is we got to change something because we're running out of money fast. We have some student loans with my wife, and we've got a baby on the way. She's not working anymore because the baby's coming. Just all the pressure, all hitting at once. And so I sit down with my wife and I go, look, we've got to make some changes. We've got to make some things. And either I've got to go get a real job, if you will, right? W-2 job, and give up on this dream of what I absolutely love in commercial real estate, or we've got to make some changes. She goes, well, what is it going to take? And I go, well, I think the first step is we got to move with my brother into his condo. I call my brother up. Hey, brother, can we move in with your condo? He goes, yeah, you can move in. Okay, so that saved a little bit in rent. What else? Well, we're going into credit card debt. So I said, whatever it's willing to take. I said, Melanie is my wife. I said, I'm going to go work sides and weekends at Cheesecake Factory. She goes, what do you mean? I go, well, we were just there on Saturday, and the cheesecake's $12 and the egg rolls are $12. I can sell this stuff on the side. She goes, you're willing to do that? I go, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so by day, I would be making cold calls, and by night, I'd be working at Cheesecake Factory. And I walk into Cheesecake Factory on a random Saturday, give him my resume, get an interview for Tuesday, get the job on Friday. But he tells me this, Brett, if I hire you, I want to know that you're not going to leave me in 2 months when you close a $50,000 check at Marcus & Millichap. And I said, look, I'm not going to do it. He goes, how can you promise me that? I go, well, I'll give you my word, but second, my wife and baby at home, living with my brother, no matter how successful I might be at Marcus & Millichap, I will not leave. And so for 2 years, I kept that commitment. And I was willing to do whatever it would take. So I worked 60, 70-hour weeks, nights and weekends. So by day, I'd make cold calls. I would wear the same tie, guys, that Marcus & Millichap at that time required ties and suits. I'd wear the same tie, and I would just change my outfit. And this is not me smiling there, but I wore a tie very similar. This is my actual manager here, and this is the restaurant I worked at in Roseville. I didn't tell anyone this. At one point, there's a client in the other room that I'm trying to get a listing on a $3 million deal. And I'm like, I'm totally embarrassed, right? Because I'm like, if this guy sees me, he's not going to give me the listing, right? And it's just a really low point financially. But how many of us know that these opportunities are ways for transformation, for opportunities to solve problems, for opportunities to get creative, for opportunities to make a difference for your client's future? Well, that's where I was. So my manager at the time brings in a gentleman, and this gentleman's name is Robert. And Robert played for the 49ers, and Robert's here to talk to us about eliminating the need for the 1031 exchange. So we sat in the Marcus & Millichap office, most of us thinking this is too good to be true, but we sat there and we listened. And some of us actually took action. Some of us were making some money, some of us were not, like me. And I said, whatever it takes. So I started using it as an interest generator. I started calling people. I started talking about it. I started talking about their challenges. Well, guess what? They had a lot of challenges too. They were going through their own financial struggle. Their financial struggle was this. They had overpaid for properties in 05 and 06 and 07. They had taken on too much debt. They didn't have enough liquidity. They were fighting with the banks. They were getting foreclosed on. They were losing half or all of their wealth. We met with a gentleman in 2006. We told him he needs to sell all of his C-class of properties that he had too much debt on for a high price. We said, get out. We think something's going to change. He said, I'm good, guys. $50 million worth of real estate. He loses over the next 3 years. Everything. Why? Part of it because we couldn't find an exchange property. And we didn't know about the 1031. We didn't know about the Deferred Sales Trust until 2009. So this is 2009 timeframe when I started learning about the Deferred Sales Trust. It's too late. But if we had had this for him, we would have been able to sell everything, defer all the tax, get him out of debt, and he wouldn't have lost literally everything. Okay? And so that's what he'd gone on to tell us. So I started to just talk about it. So I say, hey, Mr. Client, I'm learning about this thing. I'm not an expert in it, but I think it might have solved your challenges. He goes, well, that sounds great, Brett. Why didn't you call me 3 years ago? I said, I know. I wish I would have. Well, that sounds great, Brett, but talk to my CPA. It sounds too good to be true. Well, okay, so talk to your CPA. Well, call me in a few years when this thing comes back. As I kept talking about it, I got more meetings. And guess what more meetings led to? More listings, more opportunities, more chances to win business. So fast forward 10 years, okay, I've been able to successfully retire from the Cheesecake Factory. I gave him my 2 years. I walked out 1 day after 2 years, right? So I fulfilled my commitment. Succeeded in real estate. My family has grown to 5 kids here in Roseville, California. And now I coach and train commercial brokers, but also sell real estate as well. And I speak all over the nation. And I go into Marcus & Millichap office and train them personally. And we're growing. My wife's been able to stay home full time with our kids. And that is what's possible. So I've discovered after 10 years the hard way. And how many of you want to learn the easy way? Okay. By the way, if you've been struggling, this is probably why. We talked about the perfect storm with the baby boomers, right? The big old $17 trillion that's going to pass from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. Well, remember, the other perfect storm is Biden's proposal to take away or limit the 1031 exchange, to eliminate the stepped-up basis, to double basically the federal capital gains tax rate. The other one storm is the perfect storm. So it's political storm, it is demographic storm, and it's also economic storm. We are at some of the most all-time highs. In fact, this feels like the 05-06 potentially for a potential crash. Do I think it's going to be this high, higher of a crash? No, most don't think so. But guess what? These baby boomer clients are 10 years older, and they certainly remember what happened, right? And they don't want to go through this. They're also facing some new challenges, estate tax issues, right? Which the Deferred Sales Trust also solves. Okay, so by the way, this is not your fault. If you've been struggling, your CPA doesn't know about it, or your commercial real estate broker didn't want to tell you about it. Not all commercial real estate Marcus and Millichap offices are the same either. Not everyone wants to talk about this. Or in fact, my manager was fired within that 2009 to 2011 timeframe. A new manager came in and told me to stop talking about this. He didn't want me doing this. He wanted to do 1031 exchanges because most companies are focused on just transactions and not actually transformation for clients. And so the 1031 exchange also don't want you to know about this. They want to keep your clients in a shotgun wedding, right? And it doesn't necessarily give your clients freedom from the toilets, trash, employees, tenants, liability, and it doesn't give them the ability to go back into real estate whenever they want to, right? And which is actually the best story I know that really changed it for me is a story I'm going to tell you right now. And this is for a gentleman in 2006. He saw the writing on the wall, and he'd been using Blockbuster 1031. He's worth about $200 million. He's selling a property across the street from the Minnesota Vikings Stadium. And he's looking at his 1031 options, and he's going, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I going to overpay? I think something's going to change. He didn't know that 2008 would be such a crazy thing, but he knew it was too high to pay. So he goes, I'm going to try this deferred sales trust. I'm going to try this Netflix to see if this thing's legit and real and if it works. So that's what he does. He sells the property. He pays off his debt. He defers millions of dollars of tax, puts it into the deferred sales trust, and then he's able to invest it into stocks, bonds, mutual funds. He's able to get passive income coming from the trust. And then he's able to wait on the sideline. By the way, very conservative stuff. This guy hates the stock market. He's not a stock market guy, but he's able to just park the funds. That's part of the thing of the deferred sales trust. You can invest it in like-kind property. You can put it in not like-kind property. You can put it into businesses. You can do ground-up development. You can do stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You can put it into hard money lending, right? You can diversify your collateral for this. So anyways, 5 years goes by. The bank calls him up and says, hey, you know what? That property you sold in Minnesota for $20 million? Yeah. Well, we just foreclosed on it from the buyer who, that 1031 buyer who bought it from me. He said, yeah, we're just curious. Do you want to buy it back from us out of foreclosure? And he goes, well, maybe. What's the price? And they said, well, about 40% less than what you sold it for. He goes, well, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good deal. So what did he do? He reallocated the investments inside of the deferred sales trust to a brand new LLC, a big portion of them. And he used that all tax deferred to buy that property. So what did he do? He did what our parents taught us to do. He sold high and he bought low. He sold high at $20 million and he bought at 40% less than what he had sold it for, all tax deferred without using a 1031 exchange. Okay. When I heard that and understood that and that clicked, and I hope it's clicking for you right now, we're going to walk through how this whole thing works in a minute. That changed everything. That was why it became the Netflix, because you could do what we've always wanted to do in real estate. Sell high and have no timing restrictions, to go back and buy real estate when it makes sense, to let the cash flow of the intrinsic value of the deal dictate whether we buy it or not letting the tax tail wag the investment dog, okay? So, AKA what you've been forced to do the very hard way, 1031 exchange, the past 10 years, this is what your clients have been forced to do. Hire a broker, 5 to 6% commission. Sell a property, closing costs 0.5%. Hire attorneys to review documents, $1,000. Hire a 1031 qualified intermediary, $750. Hire an attorney to draft new LLC, $1,500. Identify 3 properties within 45 days and close within 180 days. Pressure. Apply and obtain a loan, 1% origination fee and closing costs. Buy a property. Hopefully they didn't overpay. Take on more debt than they wanted to, feeling more pressure. Their upfront costs could be hundreds of thousands of dollars per deal. The time to do this can be 6 months just to sell the property and to buy another property. Plus, post-close, they got to hire new management, new leases, new utilities, new laws, new collections, new eviction rules. All of it is endless stress for a lot of your clients who don't need or want the stress, okay? Who are ready to truly be diversified, liquid. Now, if they find a deal and they want to go back into, amazing. Use the deferred sales trust to do that, all tax deferred, like we just said. By the way, we want to touch on the other DST, and we call this, again, the inflexible passive way. And the Delaware definitely has some positives. I'm going to talk about that here. Okay, but this is what your clients have also been forced to do. By the way, the Delaware is just another form of a 1031 exchange. I like to call it the Hollywood video. I don't know if you guys had Hollywood videos where you're at. Growing up, I did. Blockbusters and Hollywood videos. And so again, it can do some really cool things, but it has the same fundamental structural challenges of the 1031 because of the timelines. As well, the funds are not liquid, okay? They're typically tied up for 7 to 10 years. And remember, I've closed on Delaware Statutory Trust for clients as well, so I know these intimately, okay? Also, the funds are not diversified. Well, to the extent that there's not multiple properties inside of the deferred Delaware Statutory Trust portfolio, Most of the time, there's 1 to 3 properties that I've seen, but they're not diversified in multiple asset classes: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, hard money lending, ground up development, value add properties, right? And turnkey properties. Also, their fees are very high. Be very, very cautious of these actual fees. We have found as much as 14% go to multiple parties. For every dollar you put in, about 85 cents actually hits the real estate. So there's huge fees in these things, okay? Also, the old depreciation schedule travels, okay? Remember 1031 exchange rules, old depreciation travels. Not with the deferred sales trust. We get a brand new depreciation schedule when we're actively purchasing property. And again, you're also selling high and oftentimes buying higher in the exact same market, what our parents taught us not to do. There's also a thing called 7 deadly sins of the Delaware. You might want to look that up. But the real key thing I wanted to point out here, it's typically just not value add. So as commercial real estate owner myself, we really focus on buying with our clients or helping clients find value add forced appreciation deals, right? You're going to buy a property with that needs a lot of work, and you're going to improve it. And when you improve it, guess what? You're going to get higher rents. Most of these Delaware deals are turnkey, beautiful properties, Class A operators, Class A locations. But guess what? There's not a lot of upside. There's huge fees. There's not a lot of incentive for these sponsors to go out and really hit a home run, right? And so that is a big thing that I don't like. Now, you might like the turnkey beautiful properties, and that's great. Again, it's all completely passive. Those are some of the positives, as well as non-recourse loans, which is great. It's I call it the there's also no more management that you have to deal with, no more toilets, trash liabilities, loss collections. It's very peaceful mailbox money, right? And it's sleepy real estate capital is what I call it. You want to just be sleepy, just give it up to somebody else, lose all control, all liquidity, and just receive sleepy money in the mailbox. That's totally cool. You can do that. By the way, I've multiple deals that I've closed 7 in the last 40 days with the Deferred Sales Trust. One of them was a mixture, was a combo. So sometimes it's a combo, and that's totally cool too. Now, the number one thing that the Delaware does do, by the way, is it solves mortgage over basis, okay? This is really cool, right? So if your mortgage is above your basis, there's some Delaware deals that have these very high LTV debt ratios. Typically, it's an Amazon tenant, and typically it's 85% LTV in that range. And so if you have a mortgage over basis, and you can search that on my YouTube channel to learn about what that is and how that works. But it's one thing that Deferred Sales Trust cannot solve. So that's when we do a combo. We do a combo DST. We use the Delaware to solve the mortgage over basis, and we use the Deferred Sales Trust to solve the rest of the challenges, right? So that is pretty cool. So I'm going to walk you through how to deliver a transformational exit plan right now. It's not going to take 30 minutes, but we're going to go as fast as we can. But first, I want to give you a few actual deal stories, okay? So remember Steve. Steve grew up in Napa with his family, parents were realtors, owning commercial real estate, mostly multifamily, about $30 million of apartment complexes. So he talked about the 1031 exchange at the dinner table, right? And he's selling a $1.7 million property himself that he had bought in 2010 out of foreclosure for about, I think it was about $680,000. So he and a partner bought it together, and essentially they had a lot of debt, about $500,000. They had a huge tax. For Steve's tax, it was about $350,000. And so we were going for a 1031 exchange. We knew the Deferred Sales Trust was the backup plan. These guys were definitely heavy into the 1031 exchange, which I say, hey, no problem, guys. If you want to do a 1031, let's go find that deal. Remember, the Deferred Sales Trust can save a failed 1031 exchange, okay? So this is exactly what happened. Guess what happens? Murphy's Law. We get into contract on the deal. All of a sudden, we're closing the first one. We're getting to contract on the second one. It's all happening kind of simultaneously. The second one, on that one, there's some huge deferred maintenance. Second, the partner with Steve, who's going to buy it with him, his father-in-law passes away. So all of a sudden, there's a family emergency. They need the cash for all the changes that are going on. So the partner backs out. So Steve's left holding the bag. His exchange is about to fail. So what did he do? He used the Deferred Sales Trust. Now, he's a very skeptical person by nature. So is his wife. You can hear his entire story on my podcast. You can go to YouTube as well, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and on my capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to hear his story about this, okay? Here's another deal we just did, a multifamily property in Colorado. This particular seller would not have sold the property if it wasn't for the Deferred Sales Trust. There was two major problems. One, they had zero basis. Two, all of their $25 million estate was inside of their taxable estate. 3, they had no 1031 that they wanted to buy. So they used the Deferred Sales Trust Plus to move all of the funds outside of their taxable estate, which not only saved them 40% on the $5 million, but also deferred all of the capital gains tax solutions, which is about $2 million. Here's another one. We saved a failed 1031 exchange of a property near Santa Cruz. This client in her 70s, about $7.9 million sale, paid off a couple million of debt, got debt free. She's like, there's no way I'm 1031 exchanging. I've been in this too long. I'm too smart. I am not gonna do this. Looks like I might be already crashed here. So I'm just gonna finish this presentation and upload it to the rest. A primary home sale here in Palo Alto, that's in Silicon Valley, and that one sold for $8.3 million, and we deferred. And remember, it's primary home sale does not qualify for a 1031 exchange. Here's a multifamily building in Oroville, and that one was for a gentleman who owned it for over 27 and a half years, had no basis. We helped him defer about $1 million of tax. And the list goes on and on and on. Here's another one we saved, 1031 exchange in Sacramento for a gentleman who's worth about $40 million, and he deferred a lot of tax on this one, about 1.256. We saved another property in Georgia, 1.1 million capital gains tax deferred, and it goes on and on and on. So I know this all sounds amazing, and you're probably wondering about how to overcome the biggest objection to a deferred sales trust, and which this is what we found. The DST sounds amazing, but I need my trusted advisor to say yes before I move forward. I don't understand how my CPA doesn't know about this. And so I just want to tell you a couple of quick deal stories to give you some instant credibility and to help you get some confidence that the deferred sales trust is legal and that it works. And so as well, remember, buy-in proposal is calling for the elimination. So this is why it's really timely to have this information. And also cryptocurrency has gone through the roof, and the deferred sales trust works for this. And so here we go. What's the number one objection? Brett, it sounds amazing, but I need my trusted advisor to say yes before I move forward. I don't understand how my CPA doesn't know about this. And so this is the first story I want you to understand. So this is a gentleman named David Young, and David Young used to work for a company called PIMCO. And PIMCO is a guy named Bill Gross, who's kind of like the Warren Buffett of the financial advising industry. They were working together, and they did a lot of business together. And they grew it, and they're very respected across the globe. They manage money for some of the largest wealth in the world. And they get approached with the deferred sales trust. What David does, he and Bill Gross, after 15 years, their team kind of retired. And then about 3 years ago, David, with a couple others from PIMCO, formed a group called Anfield Capital, where David's the chief investment officer. And so they get approached with the deferred sales trust. And like most people, they're very cautious to actually accept anything. And so they use the deferred, they investigate the deferred sales for 2 years. And after 2 years of due diligence, having their legal team review it, them review it, talk to clients, talk to the tax attorneys who created it, they decided to add it to and become a part of the new asset advisory team and tell their own clients about it, okay? So I always ask clients or people that are very skeptical, it's like, if it's good enough for David Young and his legal team after a 2-year due diligence, is it good enough for you and your client's legal team? And you can hear David Young tell his whole story about this, again, at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And that is a great story to give you confidence, okay? So again, this is Capital Gains Tax Solutions to hear David share his story about the deferred sales trust. Here's another gentleman. He sold, he's actually a deferred sales trust. He used the deferred sales trust for the sale of his business. And he was in the financial advisory world for 35 years. And he goes, I thought I knew everything, but I learned something new. He went from too good to be true to not sure it's legal to 100% all in. See, his wife was a treasury attorney. She worked for the Secretary of State. She's like a G5 attorney. And for him, he said, look, honey, I have this strategy that I heard about. I'm not sure if it's legal, but if it is, I can retire from our business. I can retire from my financial advising business and sell the business and defer a bunch of tax, but only if you say yes. So she takes the information, goes in, and guess what? She said, it works. It's legal. We're all in. And they did that. And that was over 15 years ago. Excuse me, here, working on this cough here. So after you understand those two really simple stories, it becomes easy because of the track record, thousands of closes, billions under management, over a dozen no change IRS audits, thousands and thousands again of successful closes. Okay. It's consistency. It's 100% legal. It has a private letter ruling, and the tax attorneys provide lifetime audit defense, which is also something that's very important for anyone who's offering you potential strategies, you want to make sure they stand behind their work. So what are the steps to closing? Well, first step is to map out a wealth plan with me and your client, any of our trusted advisors. Okay, any of our trusted advisors. Have your advisors come in too and ask questions, which is great. And the funds go to step 2 is to sell the assets or list the property and sell the assets for your clients. And again, here's the deal we just did in Santa Cruz for about just south of Santa Cruz for $7.9 million. Step 3 is just to fund the trust. So you're going to fund the trust. The funds can go to TD Ameritrade. They can go to new investment real estate deals. They can go to passive investment real estate deals. And then step 4 is just to enjoy the wealth and give more if you want to, but not forced to. These are, by the way, what is the deferred sales trust? What's an installment sale? You're going to borrow. You're going to lend the money to a trust who's essentially going to sell it to a buyer, which we're going to go through here in a minute. But these are installment sales where over 10 years you can receive payments and then you can renew for as long as you want. Typically 8% earnings target net of all recurring fees. You can always cash out and pay the tax as well and just close it out. Okay. So here's a quick sample. Let's just use a sample of a $10 million sale. Let's imagine they have a zero basis and they're working with about a $4 million gain or $10 million gain, about a $4 million liability. What can you do? Well, you can sell the asset to the trust right before close of escrow. So we're going to line up a buyer for $10 million and the trust is going to buy for $10 million and sell it for $10 million. Therefore, we're going to have a zero gain here. And then the cash is going to come from the cash buyer into the trust for $10 million. And then the owners who sold the property originally are going to get a promissory note. And this promissory note is going to be for $10 million. And they're going to get a zero down payment. And since they received zero at closing, zero tax is triggered. The other tax is in a deferral state. And that's the beauty of this. The government charges a zero interest on this 4%, and they allow you, as long as it's invested in businesses or investment real estate or stocks, bonds, and mutual funds or insurance, they can live off the interest payments, okay? Now, a lot of our clients will typically, and again, these are structured at 8%, typically net of recurring fees. Fees are about 1.5% to close the deal and about 1.5% to 2% on the AUM to manage the funds, depending on the size of the deal. And these are 10-year notes. Again, they can renew every 10 years, but most clients will take somewhere between a 5 and 7% payout. They'll live off the interest that it produces. They'll pay ordinary income tax on that. And in the meantime, this full $10 million is working for you, including the 4 that you would have paid a tax. And that's really the beauty. So if we're earning, let's say 8% on 10 million, right, and taking about a 5 or 6% payout, that's how this works. And they can go on for as long as you want. And again, you can go back into real estate passively or actively. So that's a quick overview of how the Deferred Sales Trust works. So we are running out of time. So I'm going to just kind of wrap it up here. And again, what your current clients would be forced to do, they used to have to stay in a primary home, not sell a business, stock, or cryptocurrency, overpay for a 1031 exchange property, become the lender for the single buyer, stay in debt, or just pay the tax. So it's a new way. It's a better way. So who here thinks the Deferred Sales Trust is transformational, amazing? Again, here's the plan. List and sell the property, defer the tax, fund the trust, invest the funds anytime, my friend. So if this sounds like you or your clients are faced with challenge with this and you feel like you want to really get to know the Deferred Sales Trust and help your clients escape feeling trapped by capital gains tax and earn more listings, then let's talk, okay? You can email me at brett@capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We can have a 45-minute call, Zoom, video, or phone call. We can diagnose your current situation for yourself and your clients. We can see if our model will work for you. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for a bunch of free content. And we also have our new book coming out and our mastermind every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Reach out to us. We also have our phone number, 916-886-2986. That's 916-886-2986. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending this presentation, and I hope it was helpful, and I hope you go out and take massive action and to help your clients who need your help right now. We so appreciate you listening and watching this video. And again, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also go to experttaxsecrets.com as well. We have a coaching program for the top 5% of all business professionals. If you are like number one in your industry, we have an elite coaching program that can help you implement this right away with marketing, with funnels, with sales copy to get this launched right now. Okay, again, that's experttaxsecrets.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great